Okay, a couple examples are just asking us to state whether the sine of theta or the cosine of theta is positive, negative, or zero, depending on the angle where it terminates. And remember, in the last slide, we said all students take calc to kind of summarize the positive values in each quadrant. Remember, all is all of them. Students is just sine, right? And that would be for quadrant 2 here. Take is for tangent. And that would be quadrant 3, and calc is for cosine, and that would be for quadrant 4. So those are where those functions are positive, and the rest of the functions are negative in those quadrants. So we have the first angle here is negative 2 pi over 3. So let's take a look at where negative 2 pi over 3 is. We're going to start in standard position here and rotate negative 2 pi over 3. So that's 2/3 of pi. So that's about 1/3, that's about 2/3. You don't really need to be specific, but that's an approximate angle of negative 2 pi over 3. And that angle terminates in the third quadrant. This is quadrant 3. So remember, in quadrant 3, only tangent is positive, right? And the question is saying state whether sine or cosine is positive, negative, or zero. So in this case, the sine is not positive, the cosine is not positive, and neither one of them are zero. So we would say that sine and cosine are both negative. All right, next up, 3 pi, right? So we have 3 half rotations. This is pi radians, so that's 1 pi. If I finish a full rotation, that's 2 pi. And then I go one more time, so that's 1 full rotation, and one more time, that's 3 pi right there. Now, 3 pi does not land in a quadrant at all. It's one of our quadrantial angles, right? Quadrantial angle here hits the circle at the point -1, 0. And we're talking about, so the sine of this value right now, well, remember, sine is your y-coordinate. So the sine of theta, right, is, actually, let me write that correctly. Sine of theta is equal to 0 in this case, and the cosine of theta in this case is negative. And next up is part C, pi over 2, right? So pi over 2 is a quarter of a rotation around the circle. It's right here, okay? Again, this angle is not in either quadrant. It's, again, a quadrantial angle. It intersects the circle right here at 0, 1. Remember, cosine is your x-coordinate, 0, sine is your y-coordinate, 1. So in this case, we can say that the sine of this angle is positive. We don't have to say equals. And then we can say that the cosine, in this case, the x-coordinate is 0. This is a 0. I should have wrote it down. And lastly, negative pi over 6. Okay, negative pi over 6 is equivalent to a negative 30-degree angle. So from standard position, if I rotate negative 30 degrees, I'm down here. That's quadrant 4. Right? And we remember, going through your rotation, all of them are positive here. All students for sine, tape for tangent, calc for calculus, or calc for cosine. So in quadrant 4, the cosine is your x-coordinate, sine is your y-coordinate. So the sine of any angle down here in the 4th quadrant is negative. Excuse me. keep writing the word sign. Sine of the angle is negative, and cosine of that angle is positive. Right? And you can see that, right? Cosine is a positive. Any angle that terminates in the fourth quadrant makes the cosine positive, and that would make the sine and tangent negative if we're dealing with the fourth quadrant. And that kind of summarizes that piece.